Thank you very much, Mr Chair. Well, I'm very pleased to take a call in the committee stages of this bill, and as I said in the second reading, this bill has been a long time coming, and it may not be perfect. It may not be perfect, and it may not be as tough as New Zealand First would like, but actually it's progress. It's progress because we have been waiting and we have been agitating, and so have the public, since 2009 for this change to happen. And so I want to start my contribution to the committee stages by congratulating the members of the Labour Party, Darren Hughes and Ian Lees-Galloway, who put forward this bill way back in 2009, who were calling for this change not only as a members' bill, was drawn from the ballot by Ian Lees-Galloway, but were calling for this change in many a land transport bill that came before this Parliament. We put up amendment after amendment, and the government voted it down. But I also want to congratulate the New Zealand public, because in the end it is the New Zealand public that have put the pressure on the government to do something about this issue. And they indeed, as well, have been saying since around 2010, when the Herald on Sunday ran a campaign asking the New Zealand public whether they believe the blood alcohol content should be reduced. There was an overwhelming support in the Herald on Sunday campaign and the polls that followed. And it ran a campaign during that time to get New Zealanders to pledge to drink 2 drinks as a maximum. And it was a very successful campaign. Mr Chair, so I agree with my colleague Ian Lees-Galloway. I heard him as I came in talking about cultural change. And I think that campaign and Labour's work over many, many years has actually contributed to a point now where the public accept that the current blood alcohol limits are, quite frankly, ridiculous. And actually the public have been saying for some time now we should be doing what other countries do, many other countries do, and surely we want to be saving, 3 lives a year that would have been lost because of this? 3 lives a year since 2009, Mr Chair, not to mention the injuries and the terrible costs. So while I accept that some members in this Parliament don't think this is tough enough and we should be tougher on this, I'm just at the point now where it's been so long to get it to the point in Parliament where we can pass a bill that will have some sanctions on people who drink with the lower adult legal alcohol limits. So people who drink less than the current limits. I'm at the point now, Mr Chair, where I'm just really pleased to see this change in Parliament after many, many years of all of the various experts advising that this was a measure New Zealand could take easily enough, and we should have done it a long time ago. In 2010, the government kicked it for touch, and they said, oh, we don't have New Zealand studies on this issue, even though there was a truckload of information from overseas, many international studies about the benefits of lowering the blood alcohol content to 0.05. But anyway, the government, I have to say, I hate to say it, kicked it for touch. I won't say what I was going to say, but they kicked it for touch because they didn't want to take this issue on publicly, even though the New Zealand public were calling for it. So we waited from 2010 to 2014, 4 years of people dying, at least 3 people a year dying because of their failure to implement this bill. And of course, the other thing about this bill, Mr Chair, that's very interesting, if you go back in history a wee bit, I remember Stephen Joyce drinking, very enthusiastic about it. And how much did he drink? He drank 3/4 of a bottle. He drank 3/4 of a bottle, and he said, quite frankly, this is a no-brainer. We should fix this. He said that, and then we've had TV programs that have shown people drinking 12 beers to reach the 0.8 level, 12 beers, and they are currently entitled to get into a car. Now, as I said, Mr Chair, we're just at the point where, while the bill may not be perfect, and we might have liked to have some other debate around the penalty system, Mr. Chair.
Darian Fenton.
And we would have liked quite a lot more time, actually, to deal with some of the amendments that came through the Select Committee. We just want to see this bill implemented. And that's why I said in my second reading speech, we're here to cooperate in getting this through, because it's a step forward, it's taken long enough. Now, there are a number of amendments in Part 1 that caused quite a lot of discussion in the Select Committee, and as my colleague Elise Galloway has said, I think will cause problems in the future. And these are around giving a blood specimen. So Clause 6 has introduced a change that the presumption that a driver had refused to permit a blood specimen to be taken if blood had been required on a previous occasion but he or she was medically or physically unable to provide it. So that was a presumption that the driver has refused to give a blood specimen. And indeed, we did deal with, in the Transport and Industrial Relations Select Committee, this very issue with another member's bill, Scott Simpson's bill, and a very difficult issue. But however, there's been some amendments in Clause 6. And we had a lot of debate also about Clause 7, which was paying the costs of the blood test, even if you have a blood test, even if you are found not to be over the limit, you still have to pay the cost of the blood test. And I think, and then the next tricky part of it will be recovering the cost of the blood test from those who don't pay it. And so we're going to have Bay Corp knocking on the doors of a few people trying to recover $700 because they haven't paid their bill to have a blood test. We had a lot of advice around this. There were warnings about the legal issues that will arise from this, and we predict that this will become problematical, and in the next Parliament you will see another government, it won't be the current one, another government coming back and having to amend this bill. And perhaps that's not a bad thing, really, Mr. Chair, because it will give us the opportunity to have another look at this bill and see if it's working. And I support the idea of perhaps having a review after a certain period of time and seeing if there's other things we can do. We do all know that things like the alcohol-free limit for under-20s, zero alcohol for under-20s, has been very successful. And again, that's about changing the culture, so people just don't hop in a car and think, oh, well, I've only had 9 glasses of wine, so I'm not over the limit yet, even though they are dangerous, and they are dangerous on our roads. I think it will lead to a lot more responsible driving on the road, and in fact, over time, I think this will lead us to the point where we're able to introduce zero alcohol on our roads in the future. We all know how long culture change happens. I'm old enough to remember when seatbelts were introduced, and what an uproar there was about that at the time. People thought that was nanny state and it couldn't happen. Why do I need a seatbelt? It's just appalling. But the fact of the matter, Mr. Chair, is that that measure ended up saving lives and still does to this day. So I think this bill, over time, will change the culture in a way that we've gradually seen with drink driving over recent years. I think there are some issues, as I said in Part 1, that we're going to have another look at. And it is disappointing that we're having to get this bill through at the last minute, but, as I said, we support that, Mr. Chair, and it would have been good if we could have done it way back in 2009 when it was first actually mooted by the Labour Party.
I call Phil Twyford.
Just to follow on from Darian Fenton, it has to be noted, I think, that this bill is